was like the head guy in South Carolina and the program for working with the mentally ill that are incarcerated. And his TED Talk is very, very specific. And if you want to see a passionate guy, I hope I can bring that out in today's show a little bit. It's amazing where Lefford's passion is. So what I just want to tell you, he said that we have a problem here in America that we've got to deal with. And where Lefford and I have communicated in other conversations is the problem with people that are incarcerated that are trying to get out. We've got to be way past the days of letting someone who served time and give them a bus ticket and $20 bill and say, good luck. We have got to receive people that are incarcerated. And the saddest problem here is that many of the people that are incarcerated that Lefford works with should not be incarcerated at all. Lefford is an advocate for this population to have them go through other ways, treatment centers, different things. Lefford, you want to talk about that problem and some of the things that you brought out that I picked up from your TED Talk, please?
Right, Steve. Stephen, I hear you. One of the main things that I learned after joining the Department of Corrections, because to be honest, I went in there a little bit arrogant. It's funny now that Steve says, hey, get pumped up and talk. I never have that as a problem. One of the issues was I was a command chief of one of the largest wings in the Air Force, and I knew that I could come out there and make something happen. But what I found after just a short time being in the Department of Corrections, that many of the people there never deserved going there in the first place, because what they did, they were suffering from a mental illness. They were suffering from something that any one of us on any given day can struggle with. And there were people there were doctors in that facility, there were nurses in that facility that were working their behind off every day trying to keep people safe. But the reality is, again, that there were people that never should have been there. And that's one of the most troubling things that I found. And as you alluded to, Steve, it makes a lot of sense that if we can identify and treat the people that come to prison, and if they have a mental illness, we could take care of it before we send them back, because if we don't, they'll be right back. Almost a third of the people with mental health issues that leave the Department of Correction will be back in less than 3 years. And that's a huge problem. And whenever there's a problem, as Napoleon Hill says, whenever there's a problem, there's an opportunity to do something great on the other side of that problem. If we figure that out, and hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit about that when we're talking about Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah, that works for me. So let me say a couple things that will give you, pick any of these topics that you want to pick up on. In your TED Talk, you explained the need for crisis intervention teams, especially in today's world where we're seeing it on the news all the time, where there's some overreacting in some people's minds of an arrest situation for somebody that did something and they got the police might have gone too far. There's a lot more training involved. There's a lot of mental distress out there with a lot of mentally ill people that are not on treatment. They're not on their proper medications, and they need housing, and they need more people that care. These are some of your quotes. And one of your quotes specifically was, the mentally ill are invisible, and we've got to deal with this because you're going to either pay me now or pay me later. So what do you think about that kind of as a summary of what I gleaned out of your TED Talk?
Well, it's tough because, unfortunately, the mentally ill are invisible to many people. And one of the reasons that they're invisible is our fault. I'll tell you, I have a really good friend that had a son that struggled with mental illness, but because of the stigma of that mental illness, she didn't want anybody to know. So she didn't get the appropriate help for her son. That caused a huge problem because he was always getting in fights, always getting in trouble. The teachers couldn't deal with him. And by the grace of God, he's not come into contact with law enforcement yet. But as I said in the talk, can you imagine a law enforcement officer, a police officer, anybody coming into contact with somebody that's out of control, they're not on their medication, they're struggling, that policeman has a split second to make a decision whether this person has evil intent or if this person is struggling with a mental illness. That is a dangerous situation for everybody. And until we have the courage to get help for our family and friends and actually get help for ourselves, we're going to continue to have these negative outcomes when law enforcement come in contact with people out there on the street. It's very troubling. On top of that, though, as I said, whenever there's a negative, there's always a positive. As a result of this talk that I gave, South Carolina has just changed the law that all law enforcement have to go through additional training to understand the signs and symptoms of mental illness. So now the police have a better understanding of if somebody's stressed out or if they're acting out. And why do I say stuff about that, Steve? The bottom line is each and every one of us has a voice. What you're doing, what I'm doing right now, we're getting the word out. We're using our voice to help educate the population. And with education, definitely great things can happen.
Absolutely. Lefford, you made a choice to have somewhat of a career change, to make a move. You're still working within the South Carolina Department of Corrections. They love you. They don't want to let you go. I learned that when I spoke to Miss Staley the other day. But you've made another. You've gone more to a different position. Can you talk about that for a moment, please?
Well, I had an opportunity to go over and be the Director of Support Services for the city of Sumter, South Carolina. And one of the things that I learned, and which is a great job, this has given me an opportunity to try to uplift and develop the youth of our community. And I believe that if you could start working with children early on, working with them and their family, you can prevent a lot of the negative outcomes that happen. So we gotta get to our kids quicker. But another reason that I made that decision is sometimes you can do more outside the system than inside the system. You could push really hard from inside the system, but sometimes it seems a little bit self-serving. What I get to do now is to advocate for the mentally ill, advocate for the incarcerated, advocate for the disenfranchised, and push that noodle really, really hard. It's tough when you're working in government to push the government. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell the listeners really quick. Some of you listening may want to get in touch with Lefford because, as you can tell, he's got a passion for trying to help this population, other populations, of course, too. So anybody that might want to get in touch with Lefford, I guess he's somewhat of a private citizen right now and has a job with the city there. Register for rightthink.org, and I will get you contact information. Right Thinking will get you contact information. Lefford, does that work for you? Would you like to give out anything else for direct contact?
That works for me, but if you need further contact, you can go to Lefford at SumterCoaching.com. But the rightthink.org is amazing because know this, brother, you and I will stay in contact over the long haul. We got a lot to get done.
Oh, yes, we do, and it's wonderful. Okay, so Lefford has been dealing with the reentry program, and what we're trying to say in my first conversation with Lefford when Jeff Heiser introduced me to him was basically this. Even the people that are the mentally ill population that need to be stabilized, that's just a word I picked. We want to stabilize people, help them have a more stable, better life. Once they get stable and they get properly medicated so that they can live a more normal life, they're still going to have the exact same problems that I deal with all the other populations. They need to reduce the stress in their lives from their financial circumstances. And so Lefford and I kind of go hand in hand here, and that's why we're kind of hooking up here, is that, like I told you, he's the heart of a servant, and I'm just absolutely thanking the Lord that we've met each other. Now, with that said, anybody that wants to see the live stream of this other than just listen to it can go to facebook.com/new media, New Dominion Media / livestream.com/NDM / right thinking is another one. So two streaming, live stream, facebook.com/New Dominion Media /. And the other one is livestream.com/NDM /right thinking. Okay, so with all that said, let's just get right to it. The reason that we're on today is that Lefford and I were talking, and he learned that I'm very involved with Napoleon Hill Foundation, and I love Napoleon Hill, and he's a Think and Grow Rich person himself. And we talked about the book, Outwitting the Devil, and he said, I can't believe you said that, Steve. I just got that book, and I'm getting ready to listen to it. And as I said in the introduction, the Bible and Outwitting the Devil, Think and Grow Rich, these are the Bible #1, and then Napoleon Hill's other 2 books. So let me just tell you this. The name of the book is Outwitting the Devil. It's written by Napoleon Hill in 1938, and Sharon Lecter in 2011, I think, she became the co-author and annotated and took Napoleon Hill's writing and brought it up to modern times. And on the Amazon page for this book, here's what it says. Using his legendary ability to get to the root of human potential, Napoleon Hill digs deep to reveal how fear, procrastination, anger, and jealousy prevent us from realizing our personal goals. This long-suppressed parable, once considered too controversial to publish, was written by Hill in 1938, following the publication of his classic bestseller, Think and Grow Rich. Annotated and edited for a contemporary audience by Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and 3 Feet from Goal co-author Sharon Lecter. This book, now available in paperback, is profound, powerful, resonant, and rich with insight. Okay, so Lefford, I love this book. I've passed out many copies of it, and for the listeners, I want to show you this. For the viewers, if we can get a tight shot of this here. I was in Wise, Virginia, the birthplace of Napoleon Hill, where the Napoleon Hill Foundation is located, a couple years ago, and Don Green pulled out the original manuscript that was in the vault for 78 years. And here I am holding it, and you got to understand, for some of you that collect baseball cards, if somebody gives you a Mickey Mantle rookie card, it's going to make you get all giddy, isn't it? Well, this is my world here. Napoleon Hill, I've been a follower of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, for over 45 years. And for me to be in Wise, Virginia with Don Green and holding this book and having Lefford say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you're talking about that book. Let's talk about it. So Lefford, I'm going to hold up the cover of the book also right here. This is the book right here. Amazing. It'll change your life. I've given it to a couple people in the last 2 years that have changed their life. But Lefford, you wanted to have a conversation about it, and I've listened to the 6-hour audio version this morning, and so I've got notes, and so let's talk about it. You lead the conversation and talk about what you get out of that book.
All right. I tell you what, it kind of blew me away when you mentioned that book, because, again, I just bought it and I put it on my list of I must read it. But then we started talking about it, and I dove right in. And one of the things that hit me was how timely it is. Because every once in a while, even the most positive people in the world, they'll go through I was going through a situation wondering if I was really doing all that I could do. And then as I listened to this book, even Napoleon Hill, the man responsible for more millionaires and more personal growth and people moving forward than anybody in history other than Christ, he went through struggle when his friend and mentor and a person he was in a mastermind with was murdered. And so it was timely for me. But I picked out several things that you talked about: fear, procrastination, drifting, self-limiting beliefs, that made me pause. And when you said we get a chance to talk about it, I just wanted to dig into it. And the first thing I want to talk about is fear, because I think that is probably one of the most devastating things in our world today is fear. you listen to the social media, you listen to the news, you